And we're live. Oh, that's like, it takes so long to go live on Amazon. It's we were sitting up. I do apologize, Mary. Anybody who's watching this on Amazon, it takes about 10 seconds to go live, and we're just sitting here like, is it going to start? It's going to start. So, welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you.
Very briefly, before we start talking about your book picks. I can't pronounce the word picks tonight for some reason. Can you describe a little bit about who you are and what kind of things you do, and what books you've written or book you've written?
Right. Born in Yorkshire of Irish parents. Went to Durham University, studied botany and geography. David Bellamy was one of my lecturers. Very passionate about that. Yeah. Unfortunately, there was no real outlets to earn money, which you do have to do to pay bills.
Yeah.
And I got a bit disillusioned with England at the time. There was all sorts of rubbish, 3-day week, all that good stuff. So my parents had retired to Ireland, and I just thought, you know what, Dublin's much more fun. So I went to Dublin and I decided to become an accountant, which sounds very flippant.
Yeah.
And it sort of was actually, but it wasn't, because I needed something that I could earn money. Now, you didn't earn a lot of money as a trainee accountant in Dublin. I actually got more money on my student grant in Durham in my third year than I got working 52 weeks a year in Dublin. But it was an investment, so I stuck with it anyway. And the reason I did was because I wanted to earn money to do what I wanted to do, which wasn't really accountancy. However, I have developed a sort of a flair for it, but much more so the systems rather than churning out the P&L. So my passion is really to do with nature, and I'm growing an oak woodland. Yeah. So I'm sort of a bit diverse in my interests. Having spent the guts of 40 years working at fairly senior level positions in finance with some US multinationals, I just decided, I needed to step back from the whole treadmill and did some personal development courses in 2016 and certified as NLP, quantum thinking. Then I did life coaching, became a Reiki master. So I really stepped back from that whole corporate way of thinking and, got a bit of my creativity back, which, I'd always loved English, but, management reports don't really cut it.
Yeah.
So I actually wrote a book. I really got involved in, discovering the side of me that I had closed down. And, you'll see in my book choices, I was really into book. I still am into books. But I think I had to close it down because, to an extent, you're not encouraged to be individualistic and have opinions. You just do the great bit, although I never did. But I succeeded in what I wanted to do. And I'm growing this oak woodland now, and I've written my book, and I'm doing a bit of coaching, and I've written in several publications. So that's me.
Yeah. Well, we won't spoil the book because your book is right at the end. Well, it's not right at the end. Right at the end is probably about 3 or 4 random chandeliers, but that's a whole other story. Shall we start with your first book choice? Because that's what people are here for. It's for the book choices. So it is War and Peace, which I think most people know as a very long book. So why did you pick this book?
Well, it's very long, but I mean, it covers everything. It covers, a person going through all of these idealistic, from being idealistic to being practical to being caught up in wars, and and it's very, very relevant, and it's very deep. I mean, some of the names are a bit long, but I mean, the whole it's always relevant, and there's so much wisdom in it. Now, I've read it a few times, to be honest, but I just think there is so much value in it. And, the way he's trying to help, he's in this aristocratic sort of strata in Russian society. But I just think all life is there, from your youth to, you're when you're sort of dreaming, and then reality hits and war hits, and the whole thing is there, and the altruism which the main character displays. I just think it's a reflection of all life at every level.
So if somebody's like a more casual reader, I think I've moved beyond like the very casual reader, but they would have the impression that something like War and Peace is a difficult read. Would you say it's a difficult read, or do you just say it's a case of it's long, but it's still readable and it's worth reading as a book?
I think it is difficult because, like, the sheer size of it would put you off.
Yeah.
But it's worth persevering.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my books are flippant books. I don't mean flippant, but they're not deep.
Yeah.
But I was looking from the point of view, this is a bit like Desert Island Discs, and I was thinking, I need to be fortified if I'm going on the desert island, so a bit of Tolstoy.
Yeah, well, this is 10 years out of the way.
I know. But no, it's. I think there's everything there, all forms of life, and I just think it's very, very deep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shall we move on to the next book?
It's even more deep.
Sorry?
My second book is even more deep. People are going to switch off now.
Well, it's like you find your tribe, don't you? You find the people who stick around are the people who are interested in this kind of thing. So, The Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela.
Yeah. Which I think is equally heavy.
Yeah. I think most people would have heard of Nelson Mandela, but just in the off chance that there's somebody on earth who hasn't heard of Nelson Mandela, who was Nelson Mandela, and why did you pick his autobiography? That's this book.
Well, Nelson Mandela was. I'm not sure how you're supposed to say this politically correct. He was a black man in South Africa during apartheid. He was a solicitor. He was very intelligent. He had vision, and he was basically clamped down upon because apartheid didn't want people like him who were educated, intelligent, and wanted to have a say in the running of their country. They didn't want them. So he was locked up in prison for, I think it was 27 years.
Yeah.
But testament to the man and his humanity and intellect. He made friends with some of the prison guards.
Yeah.
He was a positive force, eventually got out of prison, started up the SNP, and became the president.
You mean the ANC? ANC, don't you? Not the SNP.
Yes, ANC.
I don't think he's like a Scottish National Party.
Yeah. So, I mean, he came, imagine being in prison for 27 years.
Yeah.
I mean, most people, I think, would lose their resolve. But to come out bouncing, he didn't come out bouncing, but to come out with the same fervour he had as a young man. And in the meantime, he had a young wife, Winnie Mandela. She was brought in several times, abused, and she sort of went off track a bit, which, why wouldn't she?
Yeah.
And, I suppose in a way he was very, I wouldn't say one-dimensional, but he was very focused and driven, which couldn't have been easy. I mean, if you're a young woman, black woman in South Africa, and, your husband is an iconic figure and he's in prison, and you're being targeted by, the whole system, the white apartheid system. I mean, that couldn't have been easy.
No.
But, he's amazing. Now, just before everybody switches off again, some of the books aren't as deep as this. But I was looking at this from a point of view, like, I'll fortify myself first if I'm on this desert island, and then I'll let loose.
Okay. Well, shall we talk about the third book then?
Yes.
Which
this is
Tara Road by, is it Maeve? Binchy?
Maeve Binchy.
Maeve Binchy, Irish names.
Do you not know Maeve Binchy?
No.
Well, Maeve Binchy is one of the best storytellers ever. Yeah. And she weaves everything into her stories. And it's not, well, she has little nuggets of wisdom, but it wouldn't be like deep and heavy like Tolstoy and Nelson Mandela. You know, it's she has a light-hearted look at life, a sort of non-judgmental, and she observes people. And in the books she's written, I have all of them, but she interweaves the stories so that the same characters crop up haphazardly in some of the, you know, the following on books. But she is very kind to people, and she sees the good in them and the humour in, you know, the follies of life, like falling in love and doing silly things. And no, it's a real tonic. If you ever feel a bit down and out about life and COVID and all the rest of the stuff, honestly, she's a tonic.
Yeah.
And she's funny. She's really funny, the way she describes people, and she gets people.
So why this particular book then? Why Tara Road? What happens in that book?
Well, Tara Road, this is a young couple. She's the wife, shall we say, is very sincere and, you know, authentic, and your man is a bit of a lad and go-getter, you know, which happens, and there's no judgment. But basically, he's how would I say? He's a go-getter in the sense that it's about him. It's not necessarily about the wife, and the wife sort of fades into the background, and he's having an affair with this one, as Maeve Binchy would say.
Yeah.
Essentially, they have the house, a beautiful house on Tara Road. So they have arrived, but they haven't really, because underneath the whole facade, which it is, you know, things aren't working well. So that's just one. But this theme of, you know, sort of relationships and, you know, facades continues throughout all Maeve Binchy's books. But in the end, the sort of downtrodden wife assumes her position. You know, she gets there in the end. But it's the way she describes. She's so how would you say, empathetic in her description of all the characters, even the husband. Like, the husband was a bit of a twit, really, but he doesn't say that. But as the story unfolds, you know, she's magical, I think.
Okay, well, we've got another one of her books, which is Circle of Friends.
Now that was a film as well.
Oh.
You need to do your research on it. But this is
I've found so many good books from this show, actually, and like so many interesting things.
I mean, you can sort of say it's rubbishy, but it's not, because she's a good writer. You know, I mean, she does encapsulate situations and people. She gets people. You know, she's very insightful, and she seems to be now she's dead now, but she just seemed to be able to get the essence of a person and a situation. And this Circle of Friends, it's just young girls and growing up in Ireland at the time, which was by no means, like, I was brought up in England, so I had an easier ride. But I mean, in Ireland at the time, you know, the Catholic Church and society, you know, young girls were so repressed. And these were a group of friends, and, you know, they went to university, and, you know, it was like a taste of freedom. And I mean, I moved to Ireland in 1978, and contraception was illegal.
Yeah.
Now imagine. And there was a steady flow of young women over to England having abortions, and of course they were ostracised.
Yeah.
But I mean, what were they supposed to do? They didn't have any contraception. Like, it was in those days, Ireland was really I mean, I sort of was wondering why they hadn't come over here. But it's you know, it progressed rapidly, thank goodness. But Maeve Binchy, there's so many books she's written, but they encapsulate the whole sense of what was going on in Ireland, the repression.
Yeah. If people had to pick one of these two books, so Tolle Road or Circle of Friends, which one should be the first one they read out, those two?
Well, Tower Road is a bit more like, I suppose Circle of Friends is really, young girls really sort of blossom into awareness and womanhood and sexuality and all that good stuff. But Tower Road, I suppose, is a bit more, I suppose, a bit more, well, it's moved on, I mean, watch Circle of Friends, the film. I mean, it's delightful, but it's sort of like scary as well, in that, these young girls were so naive, and once and you're on the boat to Liverpool, or you're, ostracized, or or you get married. So I prefer Tara Road because in that, it's not a schoolgirl. This is a mature woman, and she has been denied really her I suppose identity, but she finds it. She's good.
Yeah.
I
So
think
it's a more cheerful book in a way. Yeah.
Well, it's not really for part of it, but she doesn't do things in a negative, like depressing sort of narrative. She tends to sort of, I suppose, paint a picture, and it's up to you to pick up. You can pick up what you want from it, but she's never depressing.
Okay. Well, hopefully the next book is a bit more cheerful, which is the language of flowers.
Sorry, flowers. Yeah. Well, that's not a pile of laughs either. But,
I kind of thought that it might not be, but I was like, oh, at least it's got a nice title.
No, but it's a very quirky book, and it tells the story of I suppose it's a love affair, but the heroine, if you like, she expresses herself through flowers. And I mean, I did a botany degree, so I just found it fascinating because I've always loved flowers and nature and all the rest of it. But it's sort of taking flowers to a different level. This means this. It's full of symbols. It's just. I still am in a book club in Blessington, in County Wicklow, and this is one of the books. But the book club closed since. Well, the bookstore in Blessington closed, but we still meet up. It's a very unusual book, but it's actually, if you like flowers and you like plants and you're into nature, it's almost like spiritual. Is that too much? It's a different level of looking at flowers and plants. And
so, is it a non-fiction book, or is it fiction, or is it kind of what do you get out of the book? Is it like he talks about flowers, or does it more descriptive?
No, but it talks about flowers in terms of emotions. And
oh, okay.
I think basically the two people involved, the couple, have a problem expressing emotions and talking about things, but they use flowers as a medium to express. Her more so than him. But it's sort of like really it's really unusual angle. I think anyway.
Okay. Well, should we go into the next book, which I've heard of the author, but I've never heard of the book before.
Jude, you have heard Jude the Obscure?
No, I've heard of Tessa the D'Urbervilles, obviously, but not Jude the Obscure.
Yeah, well, Jude the Obscure. He was a stonemason, and Thomas Hardy. There's always a lot of angst in his stories, and it's always striving, which is good. So Jude lived with somebody, which was very naughty in those days, and they had children. Now, it was a tragic ending. I'm not going to give it away, but I just found I found it very emotionally powerful, the whole book. I like Thomas Hardy anyway.
Yeah,
but
good old.
He uses Thomas Hardy has these mythical places. Well, not mythical, but he doesn't use the name of the towns or the cities. And I'm not sure if it was York Minster. Jude was going, but he was really passionate about his his trade, and he was really in love, and it was his cousin, which also didn't help.
Yeah.
So poor old Jude was on a road to, but no, it's very powerful emotionally. Now I read this when I was younger.
Yeah. So it sounds like more of because most of these classic books are actually very readable. That's what the classic books.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like War and Peace or something along those lines.
Oh no. And I mean Thomas Hardy, again, he's a storyteller.
Yeah.
And he captures the intensity of the passion that Jude had for his art. Really, it wasn't a trade, and for his cousin, and his cousin was quite emancipated.
Yeah.
Which, again, okay, she wasn't in Maeve Binchy's Island, which was back in England when it was a bit rough.
Not quite. Yeah. Well, it wasn't that great, I don't think, for people in the UK either. For England, even. Especially Ireland was in the UK then. So it could get all a bit complicated if we use that term. Okay. Well, so should we go on to the next book, which again is one I'd never heard of?
Of Human Bondage.
Of Human Bondage, yes.
Yes. Well, I read that book, and it's about somebody who is training to be an accountant, which I was at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Very disillusioned and pissed off, basically. And so was he. And I was like, I identify. And I read the book, and obviously there was an internal struggle. And I thought for years, for decades, that it was about being an accountant. And he was
Yeah.
well, seriously, I thought that it was, because I identified, but actually it was about homosexuality. Now, maybe you can see part of that, because he wasn't happy in that.
Yeah.
But his restraint was also his sexuality. So when I realised this, I was thinking, my God, I loved that book. Not for all the wrong reasons, but I didn't get it completely. And then looking back on it, I thought, that makes sense. Because I mean,
it was illegal, obviously, when that was written.
Training. Yeah, it wasn't great fun training to be an accountant, but it wasn't like, sort of grabbing my soul and dragging me down to the depths of the earth.
Yeah, I don't think that necessarily accountancy has ever been illegal, despite people's efforts to ban it.
Creative accountancy, have you not heard of that?
Yeah, well, maybe they will ban it soon. I don't know. But,
all those bankers that got jailed in America, not necessarily in Ireland.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we go on to the next book, which is another classic?
Yes. Well, this was
Canterbury Tales. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was obviously you wouldn't just go and read Canterbury. This was part of was it O level or A level? I think it was O level, and it was the Old English, and it was almost like deciphering what was going on, and I just thought it was amazing, and the religious aspect as well. You had the pardoner selling pardons. Resonating with the Catholic Church, selling indulgences and stuff. And the fact that they exposed the ugliness as well as the story. Again, there was a great story. They're all pilgrims, and the amazing characters and the expression, the language was different.
Yeah, I've got a vague memory of reading it at school, but I don't think I have read it. But it is written in very Old English language, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but that was sort of, I found that intriguing.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to sort of, you have to dig deeper. So
fundamentally, what is the story? I know it's like they're pilgrims, and it's presumably to Canterbury, but what is the underlying story of the Canterbury?
Well, you see, that's the thing. The general, I suppose, drift is they're all pilgrims going, they're on this pilgrimage, but they're going through all the individual characters. So there's a little subplot in each of the characters, because they're all motivated by different things, not necessarily good things. And it's just like, all life is there. But they're all under the umbrella of being pilgrims. But,
So it
some of
sounds
them...
sounds quite advanced, kind of this multiple story, big ahead idea is quite advanced, you think, for the time. Maybe that's why it's so famous.
Well, I think they all, people throughout the years, I think they always were advanced.
Yeah.
Like Latin. I mean, I don't know whether my head's been muddled because I did Latin, but like you'd have to decide from Latin. I mean, I don't know how Julius Caesar's mother said, "Come in for your tea, Julius Caesar," because you have to think about all these tenses, and so it's not really an active, I mean, Italian, I suppose, is, but I don't think Latin is. But I think, the structures and I mean, some of the stuff we had to read for O-level Latin, the philosophy, I mean, they really were, people have always been wise, some more than others.
Yeah.
And if it's Maeve Binchy being empathetic, or if it's like, Leo Tolstoy being very philosophical, or if it's just also mirroring life, it's just different levels of, people were always wise.
Okay. Well, shall we move on to the next book, which is coming a lot further forward in time, which is Girl by Edna O'Brien.
I think, yeah. Well, she caused a bit of a stir. Do you know anything about her? Sorry, I'm not checking you out. Well, she wrote books. She wrote a bit like Maeve Binchy did, except she was a bit more sexual, and she was before Maeve Binchy. So she was from County Clare, the west of Ireland, and her books actually got burnt. Catholic Church. She basically sort of, I won't do it, but she flipped the bird at the Catholic Church, and she just wrote. And she was obviously a very passionate woman, very lovely looking woman. She went to London, which was probably good. But no, she wrote this recent book, Girl. Do you remember that in Nigeria there was a lot of schoolgirls kidnapped by the Boko Haram?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. And they were basically sold into slavery.
Yeah.
She interviewed one of these girls, and she basically, it's not really fiction, because I mean, a lot of what she's talking about happened, but she's just making it come to life. I mean, you read it you could read it online or something about all these girls were kidnapped, and then you don't hear anything about them. But she sort of resurrected. And, it was absolutely awful. And I mean, those Boko Haram are still going around doing that. And these young girls, I mean, they were being educated, and they thought they were safe. And she's quite a commentator, Edna O'Brien. She's more forceful as an agitator than Maeve Binchy, even though she's from a different era, really.
Yeah.
And I think it's very good. I mean, I found the book quite hard to read. Yeah. But she brought to life exactly what has gone on. And we need to face that. We can't just sweep it under the carpet.
Yeah, there's a lot of modern slavery and stuff that goes on, and people just aren't prepared to. So it's always good that So, in your opinion, this is what you call a good activist book in a way, not bringing attention to a particular issue. Okay, well, shall we move on to the next book, which I suspect might be similar, but I might be totally wrong because I don't really. Wild Swans by Chang. I think I pronounced that right.
That is a very, very factual book. Now, it's not fiction at all, and it describes 3 generations of Chinese women. And the first generation was Mao Zedong, and it was just like repression. And then this heroine's parents were both communists, they were very idealistic, and they married and they really believed in it, and of course it didn't work. And then she was the next generation, and she basically skipped it eventually to America, and has a good life. But it's just that the repression. It's a very powerful book, really is. It's gripping. I think it is anyway, and it just you don't realize what I mean. Of course, China's quite a closed society, so you don't really know what's going on. So she's, eating grass and stuff. Like the poverty and the cover up. I mean, it's still going on today. I mean, not just in China, but it's just the 3 generations. But every generation learns something.
Yeah.
But it's sort of sad to see the implicit trust they all had in the regime. Anyway, she sort of fecked off to the US. I think a good move.
Yeah.
Well, it probably was at the time. I'm not so sure about now. But
all right, before we get censored by the Chinese government or something, let's go to the next book, which is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, Tolle.
He's one of the few authors that's actually still alive on your list.
Good. That's true. This is really depressing.
No, well, I don't.
No, but they're good books. They're good books, and they made a big impression on me. Honestly. So he's still alive now. He's not a barrel of laughs either, but he's very philosophical, and he had a very, I suppose, different upbringing. Yeah. And he essentially, he's gone really deep into what is life about, and why are people, why are they behaving the way they do, and you need to be more present, which is true, because you can't do anything about the past, and you can worry yourself silly about the future, but you're not going to change. I mean, a lot of the future that you're worrying about probably won't happen. And there's what you can do about the past anyway. So he's saying about being present, which, there is a good message in that. And when I was saying that I did a lot of personal development, and then I did the NLP and the quantum thinking and the life coaching. And, that's when I started meditating. Now, I'm not a guru by any means, and I am a Reiki master. But that whole spiritual side, not necessarily mainstream Catholicism or whatever, but just the spiritual side is very important. And I think we've been beating ourselves up for so many centuries, whatever you want to call it. It could be society, religion, just oppression, communist China. But there is merit, I think, great merit in, I suppose, connecting to the present and not beating yourself up. Now, he did beat himself up a lot, but he came to the point where he sort of got a bit of, I suppose, balance and insight. So that's not so depressing.
Yeah. So is this kind of a book you recommend to people as like a self-help one then, if they're struggling?
It is a self-help now. It's quite deep again. Yeah. But the message is good. And I mean, especially after COVID.
Yeah.
I read this before COVID. But I think it was before COVID I read it. But I mean, people have been isolated, and, they've lost loved ones, and they haven't been able to, to sort of engage with society, like funerals and weddings. And, I mean, people have been just blasted with negativity and, anxiety and masks and, so it's good to realize. And I mean, my personal belief is nature is a very, very strong grounder. I mean, you see oak trees, nature goes on and on and on. Like it doesn't need permission to grow or to reproduce or to adapt. And, sometimes we need to sort of reframe and not be just like anxious all the time. And I mean, the news is terrible. It's not news, it's bad news. It's one thing after the other. And you look at nature and it regenerates. I mean, nature has gone through loads of pandemics.
Mm.
And it's still there. I mean, some species have gone, but it's very stoic, and it's cyclical. And I think we should learn from that. Like, you've got COVID, big deal. You had the Black Death, you know, like you've had all of these horrible things. And I think what Eckhart Tolle is doing is sort of saying, you know, just put things in perspective. And I think that's a very important message.
Okay. Well, should we go on to the next book, which is The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. De Beauvoir. It's like, I could actually pronounce it, but for some reason I'm Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir.
Well, so, I read that when I was a student.
This book, then? Yeah.
I was a student in Durham University, and like, I'd been a bit iffy about Ireland and religion, and my parents were retiring to Ireland, and I had loved Ireland in my youth. But when I became a teenager, you weren't supposed to do anything, you know. You weren't supposed to go out and have a few drinks. You weren't supposed to go out dancing. You know, it was very repressive. And of course, you know, you'd kick back against that if you had any, well, if you want, I mean, like me, I was going to university and I was sort of intelligent enough and, you know, independent enough. And like, why would I do that? Why would I not go out? So I sort of fell out with Ireland when I was about 16. So I said, I'm never going to Ireland again, which is a bit childish, really. But I read this book and I just thought that nails it. You know, women are just being formed by opinions, and they're not doing stuff because they're afraid to sort of step out of line. And it had a very, very big influence on me. And I think it's worth reading. Now, it's probably a bit dated now because some of the stuff she was saying then was a bit revolutionary, if you can believe it. But it was then, you know. But now most of it is standard. Yeah. Like, I kept my maiden name when I got married. I got married at 26, and I finished in Durham when I was 20. But I kept my maiden name in Ireland, and the amount of comments I got about it. And I said, but I'm not a female version of my husband. Like, whatever I'm doing in my own right, it's me. I'm not a female version. But you see, that was the attitude. And I think particularly it strengthened my beliefs in myself, because I agreed with an awful lot. Now, having said that, who was she partnered with? Some other philosopher. And he wasn't that nice to her either. I can't remember who he was. But I mean, no, but the thing was, the seeds were sown, and she's making perfect sense, and women are their own individuals, and you don't have to slip and slide and contort yourself to fit into other people's, in some cases, not well thought out views of anything. You know, it's more from ignorance than anything else that they want people to conform.
So this is kind of like one of the proto books of the feminist movement, then, would you say?
Yeah.
The early
exactly.
books.
And she was a very intellectual type of a individual. Yeah. And, you know, she expresses things extremely well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shall we move from one female icon to another one?
This is Lighthouse.
Poppins.
Yeah. That is a film I could watch over and over and over again, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's a story, and there is a bit of depth in it. I mean, you know, about love and you know, I suppose security for little children, and also the opening their eyes up to the magic of life.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, God, that was probably, I'd say of all, I read that one first of all, this list. But I just thought it was magical. And I would still watch if that film is on this evening, I would still watch it.
Is the book...
Plus, Andrews is a beautiful singer as well.
Is the book and the film the same, or are they kind of...
Well, there's a couple of Mary Poppins books, because I got them from the library.
Yeah.
There was one with pink candy stripes and one with green candy stripes. But it's just the whole idea of this apparently very, I suppose, how would you say? She was a very prudish nanny, but then she flew down with her parrot umbrella from the sky, and then she went dancing with Dick Van Dyke. I know they went off to the races.
With an amazing English accent. That's
and then they were and then they were floating up to the ceiling, you know. And I mean, contrasting that with the very restrictive upbringing of the two little children, I just thought it was magical.
Okay. Well, shall we go from women to little people or Hobbit? The Hobbit.
I love that book.
Yeah.
No, I like Lord of the Rings as well, but The Hobbit, I just had a thing about. We had a
Hobbit's
teacher.
It's a lot more readable, isn't it, than Lord of the Rings?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And just a description of the little house he lived in, you know, and the circular door and the whole thing. And we had a teacher. I was only very young. What age was it? 9. But I don't know what was going on. It was a nun, actually, strangely enough. And I don't know what was going on with her, but she kept reading the first chapter again and again. And then she'd go off to, like, dream world. So the first chapter describing, you know, that where Bilbo Baggins lived, you know, it was ingrained in my mind. And then when I saw the film, oh, Lord. And then I always had this thing, I wanted to go to New Zealand. And I mean, you can go and see Hobbiton, and you can go and see where they filmed Lord of the Rings and stuff. But I just think it's magical.
Have you got to New Zealand, or is that still on your?
I did. No, I did, and loved it. Beautiful place, beautiful. It's got everything. It's got like the Southern Alps. It's got like a bit that looks like Ireland.
Yeah,
you know, it's got so many different things.
I found out an interesting fact about The Hobbit the other day, actually, in that they actually changed it after he wrote Lord of the Rings to make it work with Lord of the Rings. The original version of The Hobbit had a different bit where Gollum gives up the ring and he just sort of gives it away because he doesn't really know what it is in the original version of The Hobbit in like the 1930s. Oh, nice. But after he wrote Lord of the Rings, it was kind of like, oh well, can I change? And they just they changed it to make that bit different, so it made more sense with the Lord of the Rings. Because otherwise, it's kind of like Gollum's just giving away the most valuable ring in history for like no reason because he doesn't know what it is. But then they changed it and they made a load of other changes to it apparently. So the original version of The Hobbit's actually quite different from the later one.
Yeah, it's sort of comforting, whereas Gollum is really scary in the film, like, you know.
Yeah, it's much more of a children's book, The Hobbit, and actually I remember reading it as a child and trying to read Lord of the Rings, and I couldn't. I did read Lord of the Rings a long time later, but I find it quite a hard struggle to get through Lord of the Rings. The films are a lot better. The Hobbit's a lot more readable as a book. Okay, well, shall we talk about the last book, which is by this Mary MacRory, MacRory person, MacRory person. Women, Work and Wellness. So,
yes.
Have you got a copy of your own book to show or anywhere? Hey. Ooh, no, you want to put it on the other side. There you go. So at least we could, hopefully they'll put that one up. So can you tell us a bit about when you wrote that book, what the journey was in terms of writing that book and how you got there?
Yes. 2016, I stepped aside from the corporate world. I'd been finance director in a couple of US multinationals. Then there was a bit of a slump in Ireland. And I mean, you know, really, I mean, everybody was just feeling it. And then we got rescued by the EU.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? I don't really remember that.
Yeah, they rescued a lot of places, didn't they?
They didn't rescue anybody. They basically made sure that the Germans and France were okay and screwed the Irish public.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, I digress. But in 2016, anyway, I decided, you know what, I've only got one life and I'm getting older and I've been working hard, I've been successful. What am I doing? I can't go to Spain. I can't do the stuff I want to do. So what am I at? So I just said, no, okay, step aside. And now I was fortunate I didn't have any mortgages, so, I mean, you couldn't do this, like, I couldn't have done it, before this stage. But you asked, did I go to New Zealand? I went to New Zealand and Australia, and a very good friend of mine, school friend, her sister died, her youngest sister died aged 50. And the place I was working in, another US multinational, I wanted to go to the funeral in England, and my friend was coming from Australia. She was in Brisbane. And, there was so much hassle about getting a day off. And, I just thought, she's a good friend of mine. I haven't seen her in decades. Well, I did see her obviously when I went to Australia and New Zealand. And I just thought, you know what? What's important to me? So I just said no. So left the company anyway, and did personal development courses, as I mentioned. And in doing some of the courses then, I did NLP and I did a thing called quantum thinking, which is based on the law of attraction. Some of the stuff about the law of attraction I think is nonsense. But I have a science degree. I'm a logical enough person. Einstein was the one who actually, I suppose, nailed the law of attraction. I've no problem with that. So a lot of the people I was studying with for the NLP, women, mainly women, said, why don't you coach corporate women? Because you've been there, you've done it. Because a lot of them are from caring, holistic backgrounds. A finance director in GE is not a caring, holistic background. You're getting yelled at from the States, Yeah. So I just thought, well, I can't coach everybody. I'll do the coaching. So I certified as a coach. But I thought, if I write a book and combine my experiences, I suppose what I've learned, and also some of the, I suppose, how would you call it? Some of the tips, tools, and techniques from the modalities of life coaching, NLP, and try and pull together something that will really help women. Because there's loads of books on NLP, there's loads of books on life coaching, there's loads of books on business, and there's loads of books about women. But just to pull it together.
Yeah.
Because, I have a 29-year-old and a 25-year-old, and it was no fun, if one of them got sick and you're a finance director and you've got all the, and I'm not being sexist here, although I'll probably be accused of it, but you've got the other lads yapping at your heels, but they might have a wife at home or a partner at home. But you were sort of trying to hold everything together. My mother was in a nursing home for 7 years. She had Alzheimer's. Now, before she went into the nursing home, it was only me trying to sort stuff out with 2 young children. And I'm not moaning at all, because if you want to go into those positions, there's the good side and there's the bad side. So you have to take, But I just thought there's so many women. And when I did step back, and I was meeting friends of mine, that I had worked with, colleagues, and, they couldn't meet for, I knew exactly, and I had done the same thing. I'd let people down. I couldn't do this because of this, that, and the other. So I just thought, I'll write a self-help book. And it's actually quite organized in that you don't have to read the whole thing. Like, there's need for self-knowledge. So I have the chapters. You can't read it all, but I have sections. You can go to whatever you need. You don't have to read it from cover to cover. Next one is the relevance of behavioral codes, like from Maslow, going from the very basic needs to eat and to have shelter, up into, you're learning and evolving and all the rest.
You're the Dalai Lama, yeah.
Yeah. And then chapter 3, shifting blocks and negative behaviour. So I'm bringing in NLP. And, there is a lot to be said for people want to do lots of things and their negative self-talk is stopping them from doing it. So, you know, if you shift that, you can do a lot. So I'm going through self-care, obviously, is critical. And then there's a chapter which is more corporate. Well, it's not corporate.
Yeah.
It's more focused on the corporate world because you have to manage your time. But managing your time in your personal life and managing overwhelm is important. I then have a chapter completely to do with corporate life because in my career, I have hired loads of people and I have also had an oversight of the remuneration packages, the bonuses, and women don't do themselves justice.
No.
They do not. They don't give a good account of themselves. They don't. I mean, I've had loads of guys, they were less qualified, less competent, but way more confident than a female going for the job. And that's just down to society and down to lack of self-confidence. And that needs to be changed. So that chapter is basically telling women, if you want to get on in the corporate world, embrace it. Don't be holding yourself back and I'm not good enough. No, go for it. So that's very practical. Then chapter 7 is about life coaching and other modalities. People are aware of what like hypnotherapy is. They're aware of other things. But what do you need to help yourself?
Yeah.
So just a sort of a brief introduction to all of these therapies and how can it help you? So then concluding thoughts.
Okay.
So that's my book.
Yeah, let's take that off. And anybody who's been a regular watcher of this show, which probably isn't that many people, but that's a whole other thing, will know that at the end of every show, I ask the guest what they would go for if money was no object. So hopefully I won't screw this up, because I think I'd screwed it up in the previous show. And let's put us on the side. And hopefully I've got the right item, because it's quite share screen. This is where I have to use all the features of the software I've got to bring up. So let's see, how's that worked? Yay! I think this is what you picked, which is a Ludno Magic Forest chandelier, which costs about £42,000. So this is the item that you went for if money was no object. If somebody was buying you something from the Amazon store. So why did you pick this particular thing? Like, why not, say, a Rolex watch or a really expensive laptop or something along those? Why a chandelier?
Well, I don't think Rolex watches are nice, to be quite honest. I think they look awful. They're ugly. But this, I just think it's so, well, visually it appeals to me. And it's handmade porcelain fairies and butterflies and all sorts of, like, I just think it's magical. And we need a bit of magic. And there's optic fibers that actually cascade the light down. And apparently it sparkles. So I'm into that.
Yeah. If it was like 50 quid, I might be tempted. But
no, I wouldn't buy
looking at the buying options, it was 42 and 41 dollars. So yeah, not cheap.
It's free shipping though.
Yeah. But I mean that's
it's beautiful. I mean, obviously it's not value for money, but it's
no.
I think the idea of, you know, the fact it's handmade and it's exquisite and it's pretty and it's sort of, I wouldn't say spiritual, but it's otherworldly, really. And if the light is shut, now I haven't seen it, so I don't know what it actually looks like, but I can imagine it sort of shimmering, and I think it would be lovely.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting discussion, really, about like how much extra people pay. It's almost with a lot of items, it's the extra 10% is where all the expensive value comes in. So you can get probably a good chandelier, I guess, for like, I don't know, $1,000 or something. Yeah. And but to get the really high end ones, because they're making them, using unicorn hair or whatever it is, they can charge $42,000 for it. And there are people who, because for some people, $42,000 isn't a lot of money. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those people. It's like,
well, I mean, there's no way on earth I'd pay that. But I mean, any creative artists looking at that, I'm sure they could get ideas and have, a more value for money. I mean, $42,000, absolutely ridiculous. But I think it's very pretty.
Yeah.
And I think it would be lovely with the light shimmering down,
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not that taken by it that I'm going to make a purchase.
You're going to buy it next week. And
Steal.
Yeah, let's go back to the overlay. Here we go. Right. So that's all your book choices. Are you considering writing any more books, or is that kind of your one book out of your system, or have you got anything future planned book-wise?
I've been writing, I've been in a lot of, I've been in the Telegraph and Irish Times and Business Post and Wired and HuffPost. I've been in a lot of publications, not obviously writing a book. I might write another book.
Yeah.
But I'm not putting myself under pressure because I self-published this, and my goodness, Jesus.
No, I've self-published 7 books, and it is. I haven't done one for a couple of years because it just takes it out of you in a way.
It does. I mean, it's like I was thinking, why am I doing this? I'm supposed to be stepping back. I've done this personal development to sort of rehabilitate myself into normal society, and then I go and do a book. And set up a construction company.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as you do. So, how can people find out about you? We're not supposed to send people off Amazon as part of it, but we're not supposed to swear and do all sorts of other things we've done on this show. So,
well, my name is Mary MacRory. I have a website. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I've got a business page as well. On LinkedIn.
Your name's quite distinctive. I think you're Mary MacRory everywhere, really, aren't you? So,
I am.
Yeah. So, well, it's been great to have you on the show. And,
thank you very much.
Hopefully, I'll be able to get. I've got loads of people who are supposed to be getting back to me with lists of books. So, hopefully, we'll start the. It's kind of like I have about 3 or 4 episodes in a row, and then I forget to chase people or something comes up, and then there's a couple of months, and this is like. So this is I think it was February the last episodes I did, and I did about 3 then. So hopefully, there should be few more episodes coming up. It's 1 in 2 weeks I've got booked, and then after that, hopefully, I can chase everybody else up, and we'll get some more of these episodes out.
Yeah.
But it's been great to have you on the show, and I haven't invested in this show in any outro music or anything, so we'll just have to pretend there's nice outro music, and I'll say goodbye and end the stream. So thanks so much for being on the show today, Mary.
Thank you very much, too.